We're a learning disabilities charity. We've been established since 1946. It all started with a letter that was written by a mother called Judy Frid, and what she did was she responded to a mother's concern about her child with a learning disability. And what she suggested was that because she was a mother herself of a child with a learning disability, what she would like to do is encourage anybody to contact her directly. Open letter with a home address. It was a really quite brave thing to actually do. And that's how Mencap started 70 years ago. And today we're a national charity. We operate everywhere outside of, in the United Kingdom outside of Scotland, but we do have a partner in Scotland called Enable. We're very much a collaborative charity. We like working alongside other organisations and charities that focus or are responsible with learning disability. Before I move on to the video, Royal Mencap Society isn't your traditional type of charity. It does have its, what you would imagine, its campaigning and its lobbying arms, etc. But it's also a huge service provider and provides a huge amount of personal services to people with learning disability across the entire country. So we'll play a short video.
Albie is 3.5 years old. He's just started mainstream preschool. He's an absolute little character, means absolutely everything to us. He's very active. He was walking before he was 18 months old because he walked me down the aisle to get married to Dad. So that was a real achievement for us. He loves being outside. He loves being out on the trampoline, or he likes going on the bouncy castle. He's doing really, really well.
My name's Philip. I ride every Saturday. I like horses because they're friendly. And I work with the staff here, sweep the yard up, groom them in the morning. I like doing it.
My passion is the theatre. I love going because it's something different to do. My favourite musical, Phantom of the Opera, is the most elaborate and better songs. I would like to go more, but because of the cost, I'm usually going to the pictures. I would go every month.
I started sewing in '98 when I started school, and it just grew from there. I've been going to classes twice a week, go once a month on a Saturday. I like to make things, just to keep my hands busy. I like to carry on doing quilting and also make hopefully a small business out of it.
Monday I do City Farm, Tuesday I do DJ, Wednesday I do live radio, Thursday I do bricklaying and building. My passion is to work with animals, and in the future I'll design my own clothes and be a DJ.
My name's Neil Gando. I'm 32 years old. I've been playing guitar for 19 years. It's a passion. I like it. It's just an escape. I feel free when I play. Just forget everything. You've got a guitar in your hand, or it occupies your mind.
So, as you can see by the video, we're not just an organisation that is involved in more of the campaigning and the lobbying and what you'd imagine with most charities. But we also provide social housing. We also provide, as I said before, a huge amount of personal services. And it's the personal services part that we're going to focus on for the purpose of this presentation. So, within the UK, it's not a hidden secret that there is a huge shortage of people either able to work or willing to work within the adult social care market. There was a recent documentary on Panorama where it really clearly identified that there was some significant challenges. The people that are working within adult social care, doubling up on shifts, that there isn't the availability that you would think is there and readily available. And one of the challenges that we've got is that as we've got an aging population, the number of people that are required to actually come within this sector are getting more and more and more. Just over a relatively short period of time, over the last 25 years, between 1992 and 2017, we've seen an 8% increase in the ageing workforce, people aged between the age of 35 and 64. It's huge, and it's one of our biggest challenges. And during a recent survey of our own employee population, we came up with quite a scary factor that what it was looking like is that more and more of our people were at that 45 and older age group. As I move through the slides, I'll be able to give you some greater details on that. Working as a support worker is an incredibly demanding role. It can be hugely emotionally rewarding. It can be fantastic for those that are led that way vocationally. For others, it just doesn't really work at all. It's not something that an awful lot of people leave school and think to themselves, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and become a support worker. Or even necessarily, I'm going to go and become a healthcare assistant or work in a nursing home. Or I'm going to become a nurse and work in a hospital. It isn't seen as being necessarily a sexy profession or vocation in which to move into. The pay isn't there necessarily because we're under quite strict we're under quite strict constraints from local commissioners with regards to what it is they can actually pay from local authority commission services. So the pay isn't there. It's seen as being a role that doesn't open up into a huge variety of different career pathways, or even for internal promotion, because as you can imagine, with any kind of care organisation, there's an awful lot of people working at one particular level, and the pyramid goes up really, really quite narrow, really, really quite quickly. And that's one of the challenges that we've got. We have 8,000 employees across the board within Mencap. The vast majority of those work within direct support services, and they're support workers. We operate over 600 services throughout England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and at any one time we have there or thereabouts 30 hotspot locations. And at the time that we went into this relationship with SMRS, we identified really quite clearly 30 locations that we'd bidded for, contracted, tendered and won, without necessarily the insight on whether or not we could actually staff up or recruit within those areas. And I don't think that's too uncommon for recruitment or even HR to be at the very last to know when someone's gone out and won themselves a new contract. I think that can happen in any business. We have a huge amount of turnover, It isn't just because people wake up and think to themselves, do you know what, sound like a really good idea and it's what I wanted to do, but now I don't want to do it anymore. Because it's such a crowded marketplace, there's an awful lot of competition. And sometimes when you're looking at minimum pay rates, when someone actually just tweaks their pay rate by, say, you wouldn't think it was that much, but say 20, 25, 30 pence an hour, when people start to add that up over the course of what they're working each week, they swap services. Sometimes it's not for the best of reasons. An awful lot of our people want to come back to us, but they do leave. The other thing is as well is with commission services, sometimes they're for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, sometimes they're indefinite. So what you're doing is you've got continually new services coming online in new areas where you're having to recruit whole new huge teams of people, 30, 35 support workers at one time, into an area, and then try and get them started, trained and ready in which to be able to commence work. One of the biggest problems with regards to people leaving within the first 12 months is that if you do have people that start and you put an awful lot of money into their training and development, in those first few instances you could bid them the care certificate and everything else, and then they go off to another organisation that maybe don't put that level of financial aid into those individuals, and then they go with all the training and then they go with a slightly tweaked pay rate. So, when we actually, as I was saying, what we did was we first of all looked at what did our employed population look like, and we was 46% of our 45 plus employee population, and that was really, really quite worrying. And when I was sitting there with my colleagues and we was looking at this, one of the things that we actually thought was, well, nice easy answer to this, what we need is we need more young people, because over the next few years these people are going to be retiring, moving on. It's quite physical, some of the elements of this job. We're going to need younger people. So what we need is an employee branding campaign that's going to attract younger people, because younger people are going to be the answer to everything. And that was the point that we pulled in SMRS to have a chat with us and see what it is they could do.
Thank you very much, Rob. Cheers. Yeah, so our brief from Mencap was, how do we position Mencap as an employer of choice to a younger audience? However, having heard Rob's story about who Mencap are and various issues that they've got, as well as the sort of the ageing population, we wanted to find out, quite a lot more, quite a few more questions that we wanted answers for, such as, who are the Mencap employees? Are there any particular types of employee that's causing this attrition? What's causing, why can't they recruit in those hotspot areas? If they're opening service centres in there, what can we do? What information can we find out to sort of support them with the recruitment of the support workers for those service centres? And obviously we wanted to make sure that going after a younger demographic was a viable audience for Mencap. So the approach we took was to develop a better understanding of Mencap's current support workers. We wanted to find out exactly who they were, what their likes were, what the dislikes were, what types of people they were. We wanted to know where they lived in relation to the service centres, and we also wanted to find out, what that told us about them. And we also wanted to find out if there were a particular type of people that were causing the attrition. And by answering all of these questions would inform our recruitment strategy. We'd know exactly who Mencap's target audiences were that we could go after. We'd know where the target audiences were in relation to the service centres, what media they consumed, what messages we should send out to them. So how did we go about doing all of this? It started off by gathering data from Mencap. Now this is just readily available data from the ATS. It was postcode data of as many of the support workers that they could supply. I think in the end we had about 12,000 records. So what we did was we split these records. Just want to clarify after the talk earlier, there was no personal detail shared at all. It was purely postcode data. I've destroyed it. We transferred everything over secure FTP files. So fingers crossed that cleans my hands of any data protection issues. So then what we did was we split this postcode data for those employees who stayed with Mencap for under 12 months and those that stayed with over 12 months to see if we could highlight any differences between the types of people that they were. We fed this into GIS, which is Geographical Information Software, and this allowed us to map where the Mencap support workers lived throughout the UK. We then fed this geographical information into Experian so it could be evaluated against mosaic profile types. Now, every postcode in the UK has a mosaic profile which tells you quite in-depth information about the people that live within that postcode. Financial information such as obviously what type of house they live in, outstanding debt, whether they've had credit cards, what car they drive, whether they've got any pets, lifestyle habits, what newspaper do they read, what TV programs they'd like to watch. So out of Experian, we had the mosaic profiles of the Mencap workers. But we wanted to make sure that those profiles were as representative of a Mencap support worker as possible. So we overlaid demographic information onto that. So we wanted to make sure that these profiles were fully employed people. We wanted to make sure that they were earning a similar sort of level as a support worker would do at Mencap. And we also wanted to make sure that they were sort of in line with sort of Mencap's values, so we inserted some attitudinal statements as well. With Rob's sort of brief of how do we go after a younger demographic, we also cut the data again by age. So we wanted to profile those candidates 18 to 24 and also 25 plus, again, so we could see how we can go after that younger demographic. So we fed all this into another system called TGI, which is Target Group Index. It's the longest established lifestyle marketing and media survey in Britain. And from this, we were able to glean media consumption and lifestyle attitudes of the audiences. So you'll be looking to that's the last system we fed into. Now it's all the outputs that we got from it. So first of all, we had audience heat maps. So throughout the UK, we had heat maps showing where a younger demographic, representative of Mencap support workers, and an older demographic of those support workers actually lived in relation to the Mencap service centres. So when we were going after marketing campaigns for hotspot areas such as Selby, we knew by postcode exactly where Rob and the team would need to, if we're doing leaflet drops, where they'd need to be. If we're doing programmatic activity, we could target it specifically at these postcodes. We knew the types of people the 18 to 24-year-olds were and the 25-year-olds plus. So we could look at those profiles and actually think, do we need more of those people, or are some of those people actually causing the attrition that we don't want to go after? And again, all of those profile types could be fed into the likes of programmatic and targeted directly. And we also knew social demographics, so we knew what made these people tick. Were people coming to work for Mencap because they had children? Did they have outstanding debt? Were they using it as a bit of a stepping stone onto something bigger? So again, we could hone the messaging that we go after those people with. We also knew what attitudes, hobbies and interests they had. Again, this was lifestyle, leisure hobbies, but it was also when they were actually looking for jobs, what were they looking for, where were they looking? And again, that was fed by the media consumption as well. But one of the key findings was that the research, specifically around the 18 to 24-year-olds, it allowed us to sort of answer Rob's brief of, how should we position Mencap as an employer of choice to a younger demographic, and ultimately the answer was, don't do it. Don't do it solely anyway, because by doing this, we knew exactly, what made the 18 to 24-year-olds, what messages we need to send to them. We knew where to find them, how to reach them, what messages would resonate with them. But by doing this, we could potentially reduce the age of Mencap's workforce. However, at the same time, we could increase the attrition levels, especially within those first 12 months, because the research showed us that the 18 to 24-year-old profiles that we got out of Experian are 3 times more likely to move jobs within the next 12 months than the UK average, or conversely, they were 3 times as likely to have moved within the last 12 months. So we know that yes, we can go after this younger demographic, but by doing so, you're potentially going to relieve one problem but exacerbate another one. So Mencap took the decision based on this insight not to go after a younger demographic solely. We can feed that into a larger campaign. However, we'll also target the profile types, the safer sort of keeper profiles, if you like, that are going to come into Mencap and stay for the long term. So we can start working on reducing the age of the workforce. However, we can make sure that attrition level, if anything, it improves rather than gets worse. So in terms of all that insight, obviously, Mencap used that to sort of make a business decision not to go after a younger demographic. However, we can also feed it into the development of the employer brand and the attraction strategy, because we know exactly who Mencap's ideal audiences are, what they're like, where they are, how to reach them, and what messages are really going to resonate with them. Okay, so I hope that's been of use. As I mentioned, a younger demographic might not be the type of audience that you're looking to go after. However, just by using some simple, readily available data, just postcode data from the ATS or from a spreadsheet or whatever form it's in, you can get quite in-depth, detailed insights out of it. I just wanted to leave you with some data tips. So always have a clear aim. So when you're going into a project, don't just throw everything at it. Have a clear aim. What's the one question ultimately that you're trying to get the answer for? Gather your raw data. It doesn't matter where it comes from, what state it's in. You can always format it later. Just make sure you've got it in the first place. Once you've got it, that's when you can organise it. We cut Mencap data several times over to make sure that we got the answers that we were looking for. Get to know it and understand it. Don't be afraid of the data. You can do whatever you want with it, as long as it complies with the data protection legislation that's coming up. Analyse the data. Make sure that you're getting the information that you want from it. And make sure that the outputs make sense. We've got the heat maps that we've shared with Rob for those 30 hotspot locations that he's got throughout the UK. And again, you can just use them. All of the profile types, we can use them. There aren't any outputs that we've got from the research that we can't put to good use. And take action on the data. Don't just let it be an exercise that you carry out, just tick a box and it sits in the bottom drawer. Be brave like Mencap and make a decision that's going to impact your recruitment strategy. Thank you very much.